Today, we're diving into a pretty powerful idea. When it comes to money, it turns out that how you behave is way more important than what you know. Okay, let's kick things off with a tale of two guys. On one side, you've got Ronald Reed. He was a lifelong gas station attendant and janitor. And on the other side, Richard Fuscone, a Harvard-educated finance exec for Merrill Lynch. So, just based on their resumes, who do you think ended up wealthier? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, the answer is probably not who you think. Get this. When Ronald Reed passed away at 92, this humble janitor with zero financial background left an estate worth over $8 million. He donated most of it to his local hospital and library, and it actually made international news. So, you've got to be asking, how in the world did a janitor pull this off? Reed's secret was that there was no secret. Seriously, he just saved what little he could, invested it in stable blue-chip stocks, and then he just waited, patiently, for decades. Fuscone, on the other hand, he was driven by something else entirely: greed. He took on massive debt for this super extravagant lifestyle. We're talking an 18,000 square foot mansion that cost him over $90,000 a month just in upkeep. So when the 2008 financial crisis hit, poof, his whole financial house of cards just collapsed. He went completely bankrupt.
And this story just perfectly illustrates the main point. Doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. See, financial success isn't like physics, with all these strict laws and formulas. It's a soft skill. It's all psychology. You could be an absolute genius who can't control their emotions, and you'd be a financial disaster. Meanwhile, a totally ordinary person with just a few key behavioral skills, well, they can become incredibly wealthy.
Okay, so if we're going to understand our own behavior with money, we first have to get our heads around this idea that everyone's view of finance is totally unique, and a huge part of that is shaped by the specific time period we grew up in.
Yeah, just think about this for a second. Let's say you were born in 1950. During your teens and 20s, your most formative years, the stock market, adjusted for inflation, went absolutely nowhere. So what's your lesson? Stocks are a risky, stagnant bet. But what if you were born just 20 years later, in 1970? In your teens and 20s, you saw the market go up nearly 10 times. Your lesson is the total opposite. Stocks are an incredible wealth-building machine. It's the same market, but two people can have completely different realities about how it works.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Your personal experience with money, it makes up maybe 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world, but it's probably like 80% of how you think the world works. That tiny sliver of history you've lived through, it feels like the absolute truth, and it becomes the bedrock for all your financial decisions, even though it's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. So, when you look at how other people spend their money, or maybe how they invest, or even when you look back at some of your own choices, does it mean some people are just crazy?
No, not at all. The thing is, no one is crazy. Their decisions, your decisions, they make perfect sense to you based on your own unique experiences. They feel completely logical because they're based on the information you have and the personal, emotional lens you see the world through. What looks totally nuts to one person is a completely rational move to someone else. But it's not just our individual behavior that's at play here. There are these two powerful, kind of invisible forces that shape our financial outcomes way more than we like to admit, and those are luck and risk. Let's take Bill Gates, for example. We all know he's brilliant, incredibly hardworking, but his success story has this just staggering dose of luck right at the very beginning. It's called the Lakeside Miracle. See, back in 1968, he happened to go to Lakeside School, which, through a whole series of lucky breaks, was one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer.
And just to put that into perspective for you, in 1968, there were about 303 million high school-aged kids in the world. Only around 300 of them went to Lakeside. So the odds of any one student attending that one school with that one piece of technology at that one moment in time, it was literally a 1 in a million shot. Even Gates himself says that if it weren't for Lakeside, there would be no Microsoft.
But here's the thing about luck. It has a twin: risk. At Lakeside, Bill Gates had a best friend, a guy named Kent Evans. And Evans was just as smart, just as into the computer, and just as ambitious as Gates was. They spent hours and hours together. And they had plans. They were going to start a company together. But Kent Evans never got that chance. He died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. A 1 in a million tragedy. So you see, he experienced the exact same force as Bill Gates, that same 1 in a million probability, just in the opposite direction. Luck and risk really are just two sides of the same coin. And once you start to really acknowledge the roles of luck and risk, it leads us to this really critical behavioral trap. It's one that even the most successful people fall into. That dangerous, never-ending desire for just more. Let me tell you about Rajat Gupta. His story is incredible, a true rags-to-riches tale. He came from the slums of Kolkata and rose to become the CEO of McKinsey, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. By 2008, his net worth was already around $100 million. I mean, the guy had everything you could possibly need or want.
But it wasn't enough for him. He was sitting on these corporate boards next to actual billionaires, and he desperately wanted to become one of them. So what did he do? He started engaging in illegal insider trading. He risked his reputation, his freedom, and that entire $100 million fortune he had already built, all for something he didn't have and absolutely did not need. And of course, in the end, he got caught. And he lost everything.
His problem was pretty simple. And it's the same problem people like Bernie Madoff had, who, by the way, was already super rich before he started his Ponzi scheme. They just didn't have a sense of enough. The goalpost for wealth just kept moving further and further away. That constant hunger for more made them risk everything they had and needed. And that brings us to what is maybe the single most important and probably the hardest financial skill there is: knowing when to stop.
There's this fantastic story that just captures this idea perfectly. The authors Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller are at a party, right? It's being hosted by some billionaire hedge fund manager. And at one point, Vonnegut leans over to Heller and points out that their host made more money in that single day than Heller had earned from his masterpiece novel, Catch-22, over its entire history.
And Heller's reply is just perfect. He says, yes, but I have something he will never have: enough. That one little word says it all, doesn't it? Enough isn't some number on a spreadsheet. It's a feeling. It's a decision you make to just get off that hamster wheel of constantly comparing yourself to others. So let's wrap this up. Ultimately, managing money is way less about spreadsheets and formulas and way more about psychology. It's about remembering that your view of money is totally unique to you. It's about acknowledging the massive roles that luck and risk play in everyone's lives. And most importantly, it's about learning that crucial skill of defining what enough actually means to you. And that really leaves us with the most important question you can ask yourself. It's not, how can I get more? It's, what is enough for me? Because answering that question, that's the real key to winning the game of money.